Okay, so are you ready to unlock some serious brain power?
I think so.
Because today we're diving deep into the prefrontal cortex, that mysterious control center in our heads.
Yeah,
We're on a mission to figure out how to make it actually work for us right now.
definitely.
Especially in this world of endless distractions. Like, how is anyone supposed to focus?
Yeah, it's really hard.
And to guide us, we're tapping into the research of neuroscientist Marynês Pereira.
Oh, we've heard of her.
Yeah, she's like the ultimate brain whisperer with expertise spanning neuroscience, physics, even psychology.
Wow, that's impressive.
Right. So she really knows her stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things she talks about is how this tiny part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is only about 4% of the whole thing.
Well, really. That's it.
That's it, but it's responsible for practically everything that makes us human decision-making, focus, you name it.
It's like the CEO of our brain.
Yes. It's like this tiny CEO trying to manage a chaotic office. So how does it even work? Well, Pereira breaks it down into this really cool 5-step process.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So first step, it's constantly pulling info from our memory, just tons of information. Imagine rummaging through a massive, library.
Oh, God.
Trying to find that one relevant book.
Out of millions.
Exactly. And that book helps the prefrontal cortex make sense of new information, compare it to past experiences,
Right.
and ultimately guide our reactions and decisions.
It's amazing how it does all that.
I know, it's kind of mind-blowing, but then it has to sift through all this incoming information on top of it and then prioritize what's important.
Which is almost impossible these days.
I know. It's like trying to have a conversation in a loud, crowded room.
Right.
How does it even choose what to focus on?
Yeah, how does it?
Well, that's where attention comes into play. The prefrontal cortex has to act like a spotlight, focusing its energy on what's most relevant at that moment.
Okay, that makes sense.
And here's the thing. This spotlight has limited battery life.
Oh.
And this is where the multitasking myth crumbles.
Because we're all trying to do it, right?
Exactly. When we try to juggle too many complex tasks, imagine you're writing an email while planning a presentation and keeping an eye on your social media feed.
Whoa, too real. I'm exhausted just thinking about it.
Right. We're essentially forcing that spotlight to flicker rapidly between tasks.
Oh, no.
And the result, our brain gets drained, our performance just plummets, and we end up feeling completely scatterbrained.
Which is how I feel most of the time.
Right.
So it's not just me being dysfunctional.
No, it's everyone.
Oh, thank goodness.
And that's when those multitasking fails happen. Accidentally putting the coffee creamer in the fridge.
Oh, yeah, or texting someone the wrong thing.
It's not just a funny anecdote. It's our prefrontal cortex crying out for a break.
Wow, it's like an SOS.
It really is. And Pereira's research even suggests that multitasking can cause a temporary 10-point dip in our IQ.
What? No way.
Yes.
So I'm actually losing brain cells when I do that.
Well, not losing brain cells, but
Right.
it's like they're temporarily offline.
Oh, man, okay.
And that's because constantly switching between tasks prevents our brains from properly encoding information into long-term memory.
Oh, that makes sense.
Imagine trying to learn a new dance move while someone keeps changing the music and steps every few seconds.
Yeah, that would be impossible. You wouldn't get very far.
It's like you're trying to build a house of cards in a wind tunnel.
Right. It's just, impossible.
Totally. So how do we break free from this multitasking trap?
Well, it's interesting. Pereira
Yeah.
talks about this difference between strategic and routine tasks.
Okay, so what's the difference? Because I feel like I do a lot of both.
Yeah, we all do. So strategic tasks, those are the ones that need serious brain power.
Okay.
Your prefrontal cortex has to be firing on all cylinders,
Yeah. Right, so what? Give me an example.
Like planning a project,
Okay, yeah.
analyzing data, or even just having a really important conversation.
Gotcha.
Those all take focus. You have to think critically, make decisions. That's your prefrontal cortex working hard.
Okay.
But then routine tasks, on the other hand,
Yeah.
those are the things you've done so many times, they're almost automatic.
Like what?
Brushing your teeth,
Okay, yeah.
driving the same road to work every day.
Right, putting your brain on autopilot.
Exactly. And those tasks, they're actually handled by a totally different part of the brain.
They are.
Yeah, it's called the basal ganglia.
The basal ganglia.
Yeah, it's kind of imagine the prefrontal cortex is the pilot of a plane, right?
Okay.
Meticulously navigating through a storm, got to stay focused.
Right.
The basal ganglia is the autopilot,
Oh, okay.
smoothly handling things when it's a clear, easy flight.
That makes sense. So we've got strategic tasks, those need the pilot, and routine ones, those are on autopilot.
Exactly.
I like it. But what about this constant barrage of information we face every single day?
Oh, it's overwhelming.
It's like our brains are being bombarded, right? Notifications, news feeds, emails. It never ends.
Yeah, it's too much.
No wonder we're also mentally exhausted.
Right. You hit the nail on the head.
I mean, it's got to be bad for our brains, right?
It really is. Pereira actually calls this cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload.
Yeah, it's a major challenge for our poor prefrontal cortex.
Because our brains just weren't designed for this, right?
No, they weren't. We weren't meant to process this constant stream of digital stimulation.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Exactly.
You're just going to get overwhelmed and soaked.
And exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing this is where those 4 hours of disconnection come in.
Ah, you read that.
Yeah, Pereira's suggestion that we unplug for at least 4 hours every day.
It sounds impossible, right?
Well, I'll admit, when I first read that, I was like, 4 hours? Who has time for that?
Right, who does?
But I'm guessing there's a reason she landed on 4 hours.
Oh, absolutely. See, it's not about becoming anti-technology.
Right.
It's about being strategic and giving our brains a chance to rest and recharge.
Okay.
Think of it like a muscle.
Huh?
You wouldn't lift weights for hours on end without a break.
No, I'd be totally wiped.
Exactly. Your muscles need time to repair, to rebuild, to come back stronger.
Okay.
Our brains are the same way.
So instead of, like, scrolling through social media or binge-watching shows after work,
Yeah.
maybe we should be, like, taking a walk in nature or reading a book or having an actual face-to-face conversation.
Those are all great ideas.
Radical, I know.
So important.
It's like hitting the reset button on our brains.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're giving our brains a break. We're not overliving our prefrontal cortex.
Right.
But then even when we manage to disconnect and actually focus on something,
Right.
our brains seem hardwired to find distractions.
Oh, they are?
Like, what's up with that? It's like we're fighting a losing battle.
Well, our brains are wired for survival, not necessarily for focus.
Right.
Think about it. Back in the caveman days,
Oh, gosh, here we go.
distractibility, that kept us alive.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
A rustling in the bushes could mean dinner, or it could mean you were dinner.
Right, so we had to pay attention to everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But nowadays,
Not so helpful.
not so much. Now it's just a text message or a notification.
Right, and it's constantly pulling us away from whatever we're trying to focus on.
Exactly.
Oh.
Pereira actually talks about this idea of offloading from the prefrontal cortex.
Offloading? What does she mean by that? Like literally taking stuff out of our brains?
Well, not literally.
Okay, good.
It's more about being strategic with how we use different parts of our brain.
Oh.
Remember those visuals we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
They're a perfect example.
How so?
So instead of just relying on our prefrontal cortex to process information, like through text or lists,
Right.
we can engage other parts of our brain, like our visual processing centers.
Oh, that's interesting.
It actually makes learning and remembering easier.
So instead of just writing down a to-do list, maybe I should like sketch it out.
Exactly.
Or use different colored pens for different categories.
Yes. Engage those visual centers.
I love that. It's like creating a mental shortcut for your brain.
Exactly. And what about all those routine tasks that we were talking about before? The ones that clutter up our mental space?
Yeah, those are the worst.
Pereira suggests automating them as much as possible.
Automating.
Yeah, like turning them into habits,
Okay.
using checklists or creating systems.
So we don't even have to think about them.
Right. Free up that prefrontal cortex from having to make decisions about stuff that's on autopilot anyway.
That's a good idea. So instead of debating which route to take to work every morning,
Yeah.
I could have a set route and just turn on my autopilot.
Exactly. Or meal prepping on Sundays so you don't have to think about what to eat all week.
Oh my gosh, yes. Genius.
It's all about being strategic.
Right, right. And what about those bigger decisions? The ones that really drain your brain power?
Those are tough ones.
How do we avoid getting decision fatigue?
Well, prioritization is key
Prioritization.
because our prefrontal cortex, it only has a limited supply of decision-making power each day.
It does.
It does. So by identifying the most important tasks and tackling those first,
Okay.
you conserve that energy and avoid feeling drained later on.
So maybe instead of like answering emails first thing in the morning?
Yeah, which can feel so scattered.
Totally. I should focus on that one big project that requires my full attention.
Exactly. You're using your brain power strategically.
I like it. So it's all about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And along those lines, Pereira also recommends alternating between demanding and simpler tasks throughout the day.
Ooh, I like that. It's like cross-training for your brain.
Yes. Your brain needs variety and balance to perform at its best.
This is amazing.
By mixing up your activities and taking breaks, you avoid exhausting your prefrontal cortex and maintain focus throughout the day.
Right. It's like we're giving our brains a varied workout routine.
Exactly. Keeps things interesting.
Keeps things working. But even with the best routine, there are always going to be those moments when focus just disappears.
Happens to the best of us.
And Pereira's research actually puts a number on it, which I find fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
She says we can only focus for, get this, about 11 minutes before getting distracted.
11 minutes.
Yeah, that's
Serious.
11 minutes. That's it.
That's like no time at all.
I know, right? It doesn't feel like a lot to get anything done.
No, not at all. Especially when you think
And this is the worst part.
it gets worse.
Pereira says it takes an average of 25 minutes to regain that same level of concentration after a distraction.
Oh, no. Are you serious? 25 minutes.
25 minutes.
So every time I check my email or like glance at my phone,
You're adding 25 minutes to your to-do list?
it's like a productivity death spiral.
Right. Like trying to run a marathon but stopping to tie your shoelaces every few minutes.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
You'll get there eventually, but it's going to take a lot longer and way more energy.
You'll be exhausted by the end.
Exactly. So, okay, Pereira talks about internal and external distractions.
Right. Because they're both working against us.
Yes. So what are some examples and how do we actually fight back against them?
Okay, so internal distractions, those are the sneaky ones.
The ones we can't escape.
Exactly. Those thoughts that just pop into your head uninvited,
Oh, yeah.
Like suddenly you remember that to-do list.
Yes. Or that song lyric that gets stuck on repeat.
Or that worry that just keeps circling back. Those are all internal distractions.
And then the external ones are a little more obvious, right?
Yeah, those are the ones coming from outside of us.
So like notifications, emails.
That coworker who always seems to stop by at the worst possible time.
Oh, the worst. So how do we deal with them? Like, how do I quiet those internal distractions? Meditation? Hypnosis?
Those can help, definitely, but Pereira actually suggests something much simpler.
Okay.
She recommends developing a keyword.
A keyword.
Yeah, it could be a word or a phrase that you associate with the task at hand. And you use it to gently guide your mind back to the present moment when it starts to wander.
Okay, so like, if I'm writing a report, my keyword could be focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or analyze, or even get it done. Whatever works for you.
I like that. It's like a mental reset button.
Exactly. And then those really persistent thoughts, the ones that just won't go away, Pereira says, trying to suppress them often backfires.
Really?
Yeah, it's like they just get louder.
Oh, no.
So instead of trying to ignore them completely, she suggests just acknowledging them briefly.
Okay.
Write it down quickly on a notepad, kind of like, okay, I hear you, but now's not the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
And then just gently bring your attention back to the task at hand.
So we're not ignoring them, but we're not letting them derail us either.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good. Now, what about those external distractions? I feel like those are harder to control.
They can be, but sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective.
Like what?
Turn off those notifications.
So, okay, I can do that.
Put your phone on silent.
We're in another room.
Exactly. If you're working from home, create a designated workspace and tell your family, your roommates, when I am in this space, I am not to be disturbed.
Love it.
It's all about being proactive and setting yourself up for success.
It really is. This has been fascinating.
It really has. The prefrontal cortex is incredible.
It's amazing how much power this tiny part of our brain actually has.
And how much control we can have over it when we understand how it works.
Right. We've explored how the prefrontal cortex functions. We've busted the myth of multitasking.
And we've learned practical strategies to actually improve our focus.
If you're feeling inspired to give your prefrontal cortex a little TLC, we encourage you to check out Marynês Pereira's research.
She's got some amazing insights.
Remember, even small changes can make a big difference. What one thing will you try today to boost your brain power? Let us know. Until next time, happy focusing.